Listen to this, please. Listen up.
First up, three big stories we're following this Saturday morning on MSNBC. Stranded on the high seas, one of the hundreds of cruise ship passengers quarantined because of the coronavirus explains what it's like to be trapped on her honeymoon.
Paying the price, President Trump putting two key impeachment witnesses out of a job. Reaction to their dismissal and who could be next. New Hampshire on the line. The 2020 candidates sparring on the debate stage last night. The biggest question now, who can go head-to-head with the president? And who came away with the upper hand?
It was definitely fight night there in Manchester, New Hampshire, as all seven gathered there. It was ugly at times. Absolutely. 3 days to New Hampshire.
Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday, February 8th. I'm Lindsay Reiser alongside Candace Gibson and Corey Coffin.
Okay, so we have a lot that we're covering, and we have a team of reporters and analysts who are following the latest for us this hour.
We begin with breaking news this morning. A U.S. citizen is dead after contracting the coronavirus. This is the first American to die from the virus since the outbreak began last month.
Okay, so here's what we know right now. Officials say it is a 60-year-old who was diagnosed with the virus in Wuhan, the center of all of this, in China, just Wednesday. 48 hours later, that person was dead.
And this now brings the death toll to 724, just a staggering number. Across the globe, there are more than 34,000 confirmed cases right now of the coronavirus. That number continues to climb. Joining us now from Hong Kong is NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter. Molly, tell us about this latest case. Are we learning more about the U.S. citizen?
Hey guys, good morning. That's right. We don't know that much more than what you've just shared. So the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, a spokesperson there, confirmed to NBC News that this is the first American anywhere in the world, has died from the coronavirus. That person died in a hospital in Wuhan. And we know, you guys, there were thousands of Americans living in Wuhan, a lot of teachers, actually. We know that hundreds got out on those charter flights, but we do know that there are still Americans in Wuhan. They've been communicating on social media. And we know that at least one other American is still in the hospital there.
All right, NBC's Molly Hunter following all of this for us. Molly, we'll leave it there. We're going to pick it back up in just a little bit and give you the latest of what all Americans need to know to stay safe.
And many others as well. Back here on the home front to the race in the White House, 7 Democratic presidential candidates sparred on stage during the debate in New Hampshire.
And in just 3 days, those voters will have a chance to decide on a candidate when they go to the polls Tuesday. There was a lot of name-calling on stage as the candidates covered topics from the economy to President Trump to health care.
But Bernie says, and he says he wrote the damn thing, but he's unwilling to tell us what the damn thing's going to cost. How much is it going to cost? Who's going to pay for it? It will cost more than the entire federal budget we spend now.
If we do what Joe wants, we'll be spending some $50 trillion on healthcare over the next 10 years. That's the status quo, Joe. That's what Health and Human Services says. We are spending twice as much per capita on healthcare as do the people of any other country.
As you were campaigning through Iowa, and 3 of us were jurors in that impeachment hearing, you said it was exhausting to watch and that you wanted to turn the channel and watch cartoons.
We're facing a fundamentally new problem with President Donald Trump. So the biggest risk we could take at a time like this would be to go up against that fundamentally new challenge by trying to fall back on the familiar.
There are people on this debate stage who are willing to say, yeah, we'll leave our troops there for 5 more years, for 10 more years. We sent our troops in and they did their best. They were there for us, but we need to be there for them. And that means not send our troops to do work that cannot be solved militarily.
We're in the midst of the most extreme winner-take-all economy in the history of our country. And unfortunately, that extremity is just going to reach unprecedented heights as technology is getting stronger, smarter, more capable all the time. And most of us are not. Most adults feel happy if we stayed about the same on any given day.
We have not said one word tonight about race. Not one word. Are you kidding me? We have the most diverse party. We have a very diverse country. We have a very diverse party. The heart and soul of this party is diversity.
And new this morning, a poll shows Senator Bernie Sanders is in the lead in New Hampshire right now. He's got 25% ahead of Pete Buttigieg at 21%, Elizabeth Warren sitting at 14%, and Joe Biden with 13%.
In about an hour, several Democratic presidential candidates will be taking part in a special forum in New Hampshire moderated by MSNBC's Stephanie Rule.
Sunday at a late night, they'll have an early morning. The Our Rights, Our Courts Forum will be the first of the election cycle, addressing the candidates' approach towards the future of the federal courts and our rights that are at risk.
Joining us now is MSNBC host Stephanie Rule. Good morning to you, Stephanie. Thank you for coming in to preview this. And what issues are you going to be tackling? Without giving too much away, what are some of the questions you're going to be looking for the candidates to answer this morning?
Good morning to you all. Just think about this. President Trump very famously said on the campaign trail, even if they don't like me, they have to vote for me. Why? Judges. And judges have been a crowning achievement for President Trump. Put the 2 Supreme Court justices aside. I'm talking 187 federal judges, 50 circuit court judges. That is how many President Trump and Mitch McConnell have packed the courts with. And remember, judges are on the bench for life. As many judges as the president has put on the bench in the last 3 years, that's the same pace as Obama for 8 years. On the other side, those judge appointments are some of the most dangerous for these candidates, scariest things they think and talk about. What it means for reproductive rights, what it means for immigration. Our judicial system touches practically every facet of our lives. So I'll be sitting down with 8 candidates to figure out when and if they are the next person in the Oval Office, what are they going to do about it?
Not to mention the Supreme Court, which President Trump says he has many more justices in the pipeline. 70 Democrats are heading into a New Hampshire battle following a strong jobs report for President Trump. How much is the economy on the minds of Granite State voters, and how much tougher is it getting the eventual nominee to beat Trump's economy?
Listen, it was a Democrat who famously said, James Carville, it's all about the economy, stupid. We had a really big jobs number yesterday. 63% of Americans support the way the president is handling the economy, and wages are finally going up. Ironically, where you're seeing low-wage workers get a boost, it's in states where minimum wage has been hiked. And that happened on a state level. It wasn't the president. But it did happen on the president's watch. So New Hampshire voters, like voters around the country, are focused on the economy. And while they've got one of the lowest poverty rates in the country, we also know that wages haven't gone up much here, and it is one of the most expensive states when it comes to secondary education. So if you believe in education is the key to a good job, it costs a whole lot of money here. That matters to voters.
Stephanie, you get a sense that Michael Bloomberg is gaining momentum?
He definitely had a very big week. Think about it. Mike Bloomberg isn't here in New Hampshire. He wasn't in Iowa. But after the Iowa debacle, that was a win for him. And where has he been? He is staying on this track where he's focused on a national race. On Monday, remember, that's when early voting started in California. You got a whole lot more delegates in California than you do in Iowa. He's been crossing the country all week, and just yesterday, former acting Navy Secretary Richard Spencer, during the Trump administration, signed on to endorse Mayor Bloomberg, saying it's not about a person I'm endorsing, it's about the good of the country. So without a doubt, Mayor Bloomberg has got some momentum. We talk about Mayor Pete Buttigieg's momentum. Mayor Bloomberg has over 60 endorsements from mayors, and Mayor Buttigieg has just under 30. So Mike Bloomberg is certainly not at the top of the race, but he's definitely gaining momentum.
MSNBC's Stephanie Rule. You can watch Our Courts event on our website, msnbc.com and nbcnews.com.
Thanks, Stephanie. Joining us now, NBC News senior political editor and NBC News correspondent Von Hilliard. They're both in the Granite State as well. Beth, let me start with you.
Picking winners and losers. I would say that Mayor Buttigieg held his own as the guy who was getting a whole lot of incoming, and that was really the test. It's hard to suddenly emerge as the guy to beat, and he was that person last night, and he helped.
Does holding your tablet in bed cause you hand, wrist?
Many have turned to fish oil supplements, others phenofibrates or niacin.
Resets the dial on the quarantine. New cases mean newer exposure, mean extending the quarantine.
Quick correction, I said 4,000, I meant 400. 4 Chinese passengers on a different cruise are being tested for the infection after the ship docked in New Jersey. And a powerful winter storm slamming major cities across the U.S. Whiteout conditions blinding drivers in Denver, Colorado. Slippery roadways causing multiple tractor trailers to crash in Vermont. They know how to winter drive in Vermont, so if it's going bad there, you know it's bad. The storm dumping nearly a foot of snow in upstate New York, and at least 5 tornadoes touched down in Maryland, ripping off roofs and toppling trees, and those are your headlines.
Still ahead, the media seems worried after last night's Democratic debate, especially about one candidate.
His money online like some of the other candidates do. He doesn't inspire that kind of loyalty.
Obviously, the candidate that he feared most early on was Joe Biden. That is not the case anymore.
Our next guest says the media has every reason to be worried. Joe Concha is on deck.
Really promise better sleep?
Not promise, prove. And now during the...
Or go online now to get your pillow pad in your choice.
To recall me effective immediately as United States Ambassador to the European Union. That came hours after Lieutenant Colonel Vindman was escorted out of the White House by security along with his twin brother.
Vindman's lawyer releasing a statement saying, quote, "There's no question in the mind of any American why this man's job is over, why this country now has one less soldier serving at the White House." Lieutenant Colonel Vindman was asked to leave for telling the truth, his honor, his commitment to right frightened the powerful.
President Trump even alluding to the move earlier in the day when asked about Vindman.
I'm not happy with him. You think I'm supposed to be happy with him? I'm not.
Joining us now is Elena Treen, White House reporter with Axios. Elena, what were the mechanisms surrounding these decisions? Did anyone in the White House give second thoughts about what the optics would be here?
Yes, good morning. And definitely, I think that, outwardly, the president and other Trump administration officials are taking their victory lap. They feel emboldened by his acquittal on Wednesday. We saw the president on Thursday, not hold back at all and trying to go after some of his critics in that nearly 3-hour, he didn't call it a speech, he called it a celebration on Thursday at the White House. And then we saw that again on Friday. We saw they made no efforts to pretend that this wasn't retribution for testifying in the impeachment investigations. These dismissals came not even barely 48 hours after his acquittal. But I did have a chance to chat with some folks at the White House after all of this yesterday, and a lot of people, they said, yes, the optics are bad, but the president, they are political appointees. The president is able to dismiss them. One said, welcome to the world of a political appointee. But I also chatted with some people on the Hill, people who work for some very prominent Republicans and also very Republicans who are some of the president's biggest defenders, and they had shared, some uneasiness over this, saying, he couldn't have waited any longer. The optics here are terrible, reminding them of the massacre, as they called it, during former President Nixon's impeachment. During Watergate. And so it'll be interesting to see if there are more after this or if this is kind of it now for President Trump.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that because this president doesn't sugarcoat things. And there are still a handful of impeachment witnesses who are working in the administration right now. Could any of these others be next?
They definitely could, and I've tried to gauge with some folks at the White House on whether we should be expecting more, not really getting a lot back from.
So what happened to the whistleblower's clause? We see what happened to the whistleblower clause.
Now I think everyone's being kind of tight-lipped about this. But yes, there are definitely people that could potentially be on the chopping block. We saw someone like George Kent, who works at the State Department. He testified very prominently during the impeachment hearings in the fall. Same with Laura Cooper, who works at the Defense Department, or David Holmes, who works at the embassy in Ukraine. These are all people who are still in their roles, the same roles that they had prior to participating. So it'll be interesting to see if there is more retribution. But again, some of the more, some of the president's harshest critics during that time, like the former ambassador Marie Yovanovitch or Bill Taylor, who took over after she had left, they have both left recently around the beginning of this year. And so those people aren't really anyone that I imagine the president would have wanted to direct some fire at them, but they're no longer there anymore.
Elena,
because they were smart enough to identify what that they had done was going to cause this type of retribution. That's why they're no longer there. Proof is in the pudding, folks. Proof is in the pudding pertaining to the harshness that's going to fall upon to the people that has opposed Donald Trump in all this. And the thing about it is, it was Donald Trump, I believe, that should be the one that's reprimanded, because he was the one that went beyond the line drawn in the sand by saying and doing what he done pertaining to the Ukrainians, involving stopping aid from one of our allies that deserved and had already been voted upon towards getting that aid. So what we have here is a conflict of interest on a international scale that's now affecting our national politics.
Green, thank you for your time this morning.
Okay, let's
Thanks
get
for having
the national security perspective on all of this right now. We're joined by Jeremy Bash, who is the former chief of staff at the CIA and Department of Defense, and an MSNBC national security analyst. Jeremy, good morning, good Saturday morning. From a national security...
It's really contrary to freedom of speech. It's like, well, if you speak about a certain opponent or speak up against something that you feel like that isn't right, you're going to get punished for it. It's kind of like what happened to myself in regard to the Oklahoma incident. Because I spoke up and brought awareness to a government cover-up, instead of me being rewarded, I was punished. Instead of me being rewarded, I was punished. And the way that I was punished is that they put me under this this net of suspicion, to the point that I couldn't even get out here and get a decent job if I wanted to. They basically ruined my career towards me being an auto body technician. Really sad. Really, really sad. Whenever they put you under a dragnet and you're trying to do the right thing.
Security standpoint, what do you make of this sort of retaliatory action from the president?
Well, I think it's dangerous. Keep in mind they put other people under the same type of dragnet. Richard Jewell was one of them. The event that happened in Ruby Ridge was another one of them. These people have unbelievable amount of power whenever it comes to them attacking a certain particular individual.
Because one of the things we want our national security professionals to do, whether they are serving in uniform or the intelligence community or from civilian life, is to be able to speak truth to power. We want them to advise without fear or favor the truth to their bosses, to ultimately the President of the United States. And certainly when they're called upon to testify under subpoena by Congress in an authorized oversight fashion, they have to be prepared to tell the truth. And I think this effort by the President to get rid of anybody who will tell the truth also sends a signal, which is not see something, say something. Rather, it's see something, say nothing, stay silent.
And Jeremy, how about how it was done? I mean, we have this lieutenant colonel, a decorated Iraq war veteran, a Purple Heart recipient, no less, being escorted out of the White House.
Yeah, I mean, it was done in a way to cause fear and to intimidate anybody who would challenge the official authorized authoritarian account of what happened here. And it was done in a manner suggesting that Colonel Vindman and his brother are under a cloud of suspicion. They can't be trusted. They're not authorized to handle sensitive information. It's done in a very, frankly, KGB fashion, where there's sort of a night of long knives, a knock at the door in the middle of the night. I mean, it's done in a way to intimidate, to cause fear among other people who would speak up. And just I want to say one thing, which is the earlier guest mentioned Ambassador Taylor and Ambassador Yovanovitch and sort of referred to them as Trump critics. They're not. They weren't Trump critics. They are career professionals, foreign service officers. In fact, in Bill Taylor's case, he was asked by Secretary Pompeo and President Trump to go back to Kyiv and serve in this role. So that's the concern, which is that the career professionals who have served across administrations, they're not Democrats, they're not Republicans, will not be in their posts, but more importantly, they'll be fearful of speaking out.
Well, we've had guests on our show who talk about the fact that the president feels emboldened after this week. What consequences, if any, could there be for retaliating against whistleblowers?
Well, again, I think under our law, there are whistleblower protections, but they don't necessarily apply in this case because we're talking about people who specifically serve the president on his staff, and he has the authority to remove them. But you point up to a larger important point, which is this past week, Senator Rand Paul publicly outed the name of the whistleblower from the intelligence community who first saw this wrongful, illegal, and abusive conduct. That move by Senator Paul undermines whistleblower protections. It undermines the laws that Congress has passed to protect whistleblowers. And so I think there's a lot of concern about what Senator Paul has done. There's a lot of concern about what's been on Fox News and right-wing media to try to out whistleblowers and anybody else who will speak truth to power.
That is something that deserves much more time than we have today. Jeremy Bass.
Anybody else?
Appreciate you being here. Trapped on
Anybody
board. A
else?
newlywed couple quarantined on their honeymoon. Well, they talk about what life is like for the thousands of people who are in limbo because of the coronavirus.
And a Black History Month idea backfires. Why the choice to redesign the covers of popular classics created an uproar.
Anybody else that'll speak up against truth and power? Truth against power.
People died on the battlefield in the Civil War.
And welcome back into MSNBC World Headquarters in New York. You're taking a live look at Manchester, New Hampshire this morning where the sun is up and it is a beautiful day. Many of the 2020 candidates will be making the rounds today ahead of Tuesday's primary. Even though it is a beautiful day, it is a chilly 17 degrees there this morning. Let's get to your headlines now. And tragedy in Los Angeles. Actor Orson Bean was reportedly killed by multiple vehicles while crossing the street Friday night. This is a look here at the crash site. Now, he was injured after he was hit by one car and then died when a second car hit him. Bean's career began in the 1950s. He made appearances on The Twilight Zone and the game show To Tell the Truth. He was 91 years old. And search and rescue is underway, and that as massive flooding in eastern Oregon strands drivers and people in their homes. It's insane video here to take a look at. Rapid snowmelt caused the Umatilla River to overflow by several feet. National Guard has rescued 10 people, some by helicopter. 2 emergency responders also had to be saved from the waters. And the Washington Post reports President Trump's company charged the Secret Service rates as high as $650 a night when he traveled to his Mar-a-Lago resort in 2017. The Trump National Golf Club in New Jersey charged the Secret Service $17,000 a month for a 3-bedroom cottage on the property. Last night, Washington Post reporter David Fairchild told MSNBC's Rachel Maddow the Secret Service has not disclosed certain payments at Trump properties.
And they tell you how much they spend on Don Jr.'s hunting cabin. They tell you how much they spend on Eric Trump's weekend house. And yet they say they don't spend $1 on Bedminster and Mar-a-Lago, which is not credible. They spend lots and lots of money at those places.
Now, Fairchild told reports that public records show more than 471,000 payments to the Trump company, but also records are incomplete. That number likely higher. And a U.S. appeals court threw out a lawsuit alleging President Trump violated the emoluments clause. The suit, guys, has claimed that Trump violated the Constitution by collecting payments from foreign governments through his personal businesses. Now, the judge dismissed the case actually on technical grounds, saying that the 215 lawmakers that filed suit didn't represent a majority of Congress.
All right. Thank you, Corey. Breaking news. The 60-year-old in Wuhan, China becomes the first American to die from the coronavirus. The American died just 2 days after going to the hospital.
And back here in the U.S., 27 Chinese nationals were escorted off a Royal Caribbean cruise ship that docked in New Jersey and were tested for the virus.
NBC's Aaron McLaughlin is live in Newark, New Jersey. Aaron, what's the latest on their conditions?
Good morning, Lindsay. Officials say they're optimistic for the 4 Chinese nationals being tested at this hospital. They don't think they have the coronavirus. Meanwhile, hundreds of Americans from Nebraska to Tokyo have been quarantined as scientists race to figure out this mysterious virus. Overnight news, the first American has died from the mysterious coronavirus. The U.S. Embassy confirming to NBC News a 60-year-old who'd contracted the virus in Wuhan died Thursday. And this morning, growing fears the virus may be spreading here at home. According to the CDC at Travis Air Force Base near San Francisco, 5 evacuees rescued from the epicenter earlier this week have been rushed to local hospitals after showing symptoms.
We're being very aggressive, using quarantine measures that haven't been used in 50 years.
Friday, 3 more planes full of evacuees from Wuhan landed at military bases in San Diego, San Antonio, and Omaha. Across the country, hundreds of Americans remain in quarantine. American Yulin Yin's one of them. He arrived Wednesday, still in good spirits despite being stuck for 2 weeks at a military base in San Diego.
The weather is great, better than Minnesota where I came from. So I don't have complaint.
Yin Lin says he's showing no symptoms, but officials are taking no chances. There's much we still don't know about the virus.
That includes exactly how it spreads, how deadly it is, whether it's commonly transmitted by patients who are not yet displaying symptoms, and other issues.
Questions causing trouble at sea. South of Tokyo, a dream holiday turned nightmare. Aboard the Diamond Princess, more than 60 confirmed cases, including at least a dozen Americans. In total, more than 3,700 passengers and crew either quarantined on the ship or hospitalized. Another cruise liner quarantined off the coast of Hong Kong. And in Newark, New Jersey, 4 Chinese nationals escorted off a Royal Caribbean cruise, some on stretchers, even though they showed no symptoms of the virus. One of the patients actually tested positive for the flu. Nevertheless, in this hospital, in isolation, Royal Caribbean delaying its next cruise out of New Jersey, pending those test results. We expect those results from the CDC today. Guys.
A lot of people waiting to find out those results indeed. NBC's Erin McLaughlin there for us. Thank you.
And as Erin mentioned, in Japan, cruise ship passengers are under quarantine after 64 people tested positive for the coronavirus, including 13 Americans.
They're on board something called a cruise ship called the Diamond Princess, and it is currently docked near Tokyo. And among the people on board, an American couple who's spending their honeymoon stuck on that vessel.
They are spending their honeymoon joining us live this morning as well. That couple, Mylena Basso and Gaetano Cerullo. Good morning to both of you. First, I want to say congratulations on the honeymoon and on the wedding. I know the honeymoon is less than ideal. Can you tell us what the conditions are like on the ship right now?
Well, just for your guys' knowledge, it's nighttime for us now.
Okay.
But honestly, it's really depressing. Yesterday, our hopes are a little bit higher, but I don't know, after today, like, they kind of dropped pretty drastically. We really just want to go home.
Yeah, we're scared.
Yeah.
Why did they drop? Why did your hopes drop?
Just
everything the captain was saying, it just, the numbers were going up and more passengers were testing positive, so we were just like in panic mode.
Yeah, and the situation hasn't really gotten that much better, and we're trapped.
Yeah, we're trapped.
We're out to sea actually right now, and we're going to be docking in the morning. But it just you can only do so much in a 14 by 14 area.
Well, let's talk about that. So you say you feel trapped. How are you spending your days? Are you just confined to that one room? Do you have certain parts of the ships where you can go?
They've been starting to allow passengers in interior rooms and also ocean view. And then eventually, because we're in a balcony room, so we have less priority, but we decided we're not going to even leave. We're just going to go outside on our balcony if we need, a little bit of air, just because we don't want to get any sort of virus or anything.
We wanted at the end of this whole situation to get off and go back home.
Yeah, we're not exposing ourselves to anybody or anything, not even like a housekeeper trying to come in here to clean.
How do you get your food? How do you get your food?
They come by they have carts and they give us a menu like the night before, and we pick out of like 2 items, and we open the door, we have gloves and mask on, but we've been using the same gloves and mask for the past 2-3 days, so that's pretty much invalid at that point. And we get the food, and honestly, most of it's inedible. Breakfast and lunch today,
We didn't even eat.
Yeah, I didn't even
We ate dinner, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Milena and Gaetano, I imagine it's called the honeymoon because it's the honeymoon period. It's supposed to be a wonderful period. So you imagine it's all uphill from here. This is as bad as it'll get for marriage?
Well, yeah, right? I hope so.
Yeah, everyone's been saying if you guys can survive this,
You can survive anything. I guess this is our test for sickness and health.
We survived the first part of the cruise. Now this part's the real test.
Yeah.
Any estimation of how long you guys will be on that ship? How many more days?
The poor people.
Well, according to the CDC and the U.S. Embassy and also the Japanese government, they've all been coordinating together, and apparently our release date is February 19th, but we'll believe it when we see it, and we're really hoping that sticks to it because it's gonna be too much.
Just from the whole get-go of the situation, the cruise ship has been very vague. When the whole situation started, they made it seem like it wasn't a big deal. They're just going through a few things, and we should be no problem next day. The next morning we wake up, we're in the middle of the sea instead of docked.
Yeah.
And we are told that we're going to be quarantined for 14 days.
And we didn't even know how to even dissect that.
Yeah.
Well, they're smiling now. We'll see you in 10 days.
Honestly, this is probably the first smile we had
all day.
Yeah. Well,
Everyone Loves Raymond has been putting it. That's about it.
A lot of great reruns. Okay.
Stay safe, guys.
Yeah.
Mylena Basso and Gaetano
appreciate
Serrano with us this morning. We are thinking of you guys. We wish you the best in the next some 10 days to 2 weeks that they'll be on that cruise ship.
Time to go. Out of a job, the fallout from the president's ousting of 2 key impeachment witnesses and the other officials whose jobs could be at risk.
How about no?
No.
To make you a much stronger person. Because when we say stronger, it just doesn't mean the muscle strength. It means the mental strength.
Buddhism is central to life in Bhutan, preaching compassion for others. Also central to Dr. Lotte. It's why he became a surgeon in the first place.
I come from a very humble, traditional Bhutanese family. Religion had always been the center stage of all the activities. And when I say religion, those days used to be being kind, not to hurt anyone, to be very helpful to everyone. And that is actually the mindset of every Bhutanese family or individuals. I really wanted to be a monk. My parents taught me, saying to be good to others, you don't necessarily have to be a monk. On that note, my mother said, why not be a doctor so that you can be really of help to the needy ones? It's not my personal capacity or capability that brought me to this seat. It's my profession, it's my passion for this profession.
After his bike ride, Dr. Lotte heads to the hospital. But he won't be doing any operations today. On Thursdays, he meets with new medical residents and interns. Today's message, kindness and compassion.
I knew from day one that we needed to be a little different. We needed to be extra caring. We needed to...
After his academic rounds, as he calls them, Dr. Lotte gets in his car and drives to his other job. You see, there's something else you should know about him. If being a surgeon wasn't demanding enough, Dr. Lotte also happens to be the Prime Minister of Bhutan.
For the love for this profession that took me to politics. So basically, I'm a very, very passionate healthcare provider, very, very passionate surgeon. So that's why even after assuming this president office for last 8 to 9 months, I still visit my hospital activities on a routine basis. I was a surgeon, I'm still a surgeon, and I govern this country with surgical precision. The way I evaluated the patients, doing ultrasound scans and CT scans and finding out stones and tumors, and I treated a lot of my patients and they're doing fine. So even now on this head of the government's chair, I still have the same mentality. Instead of now scanning the patients, now I scan the government policies. See if there are any tumors in the government policies, see if there are any stones or potential diseases that can harm our country.
He's the country's third democratically elected leader, taking office last November. With first-hand experience in Bhutan's healthcare system, he has put it at the core of his policy decisions. And while the country has universal healthcare, there are still challenges to address.
We have free health and free education in the country. While it is free, it is not easily accessible, easily available for everyone that needs a service. So as I was going around doing my business, I thought we could bring in a lot of improvements. I thought we could improve the accessibility of healthcare services to especially the needy ones, those who are based in the villages. So based on that, I thought being a surgeon, this pair of hands can only do that much. A surgical blade can only operate a patient at a time. Otherwise, so I was thinking if I can get access to policy making, if I have the authority over policy decisions, then maybe with a stroke of a pen, I can change the whole scenario.
Changing the whole scenario. A lofty ambition, to be sure. But there is a precedent when it comes to Bhutan, putting itself on the map by prioritizing what many researchers now recognize as a key element to our wellness and our longevity: happiness.
Only want to end right there to my viewers. Good luck to all of us, and shalom. Thanks for listening.